Shabbat Shalom. Kids, I actually really want you to stay here because this sermon is really about you. But if you don't think you can sit through, it's a little longer today, something like 20 minutes, then we have a screening room downstairs. Go downstairs, take one of your parents. Our staff will show you how to get there. Come back up in 20 minutes. But of course, if you can stay, that would be preferable for me. This whole thing is about you. The Pew Research Center published its findings this month on the state of American Jews. By their nature, these types of surveys are complicated and controversial. Professional demographers argue about assumptions and methodologies all the time. In fact, some commentators in the Jewish community simply deny the relevance of the Pew study on technical grounds. They say that all of its conclusions are irrelevant. I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? Consider it the highest compliment and a sincere form of respect and deference that I tell you the truth as I see it. You're free to disagree with me. You're free to ignore me. You're free to live your life as you want, of course. But as long as I'm here, I'm going to tell it to you as I see it. Okay? We are in denial. We have been in denial for a long time now. The Pew survey didn't come out of the blue. It is only the latest in a long line of research going back decades. They all point to the same direction. The bottom line of the survey is this: Orthodox Judaism is thriving. Every other segment of American Jewry is imploding. And these trends are accelerating every day. There are less Jews, except for the Orthodox. There are less Jews marrying Jews. There are less Jewish children. There are less Jews who affiliate with the Jewish community. These are the facts described by the Pew study, but it's not as if we haven't known this for decades. Come on! Anyone who engages American Jews on a regular basis feels this in a non-scientific way. The science only confirms what we already know. At Stephen Wise, we have more than doubled in membership, revenue, and school children in the past decade. Perhaps there are some things that we are doing, we believe there are, that are relevant to others. But we're fighting against the overall trend. We also know here how darn hard it is and how frustrating it is to teach, inspire, and sustain non-Orthodox Jews. And as hard as it is for us, it's easier in the heart of New York City than practically any other American Jewish community. Now rest assured, Jews will not disappear from the world. Our demise has been predicted since the first ever mention of the Jewish people by King Merneptah, an Egyptian pharaoh, the fourth ruler of the 19th dynasty, who already around the year 1200 BCE boasted of destroying the Jewish people. You can see his stela, his documentation, in the Cairo Museum. We're not going to disappear. Israel has no problem of Jewish continuity and is getting stronger every day. Israel is the only Jewish community in the world that is reproducing itself through natural growth. Already now, more Jews live in Israel than in the United States. There are probably more Jews in Israel now than all of the other Jewish communities in the world combined. And American Jews will not disappear. First, the Orthodox community will likely continue to grow at a healthy rate and will offset some of the loss of the other Jewish communities. Second, no matter what, there will still be non-Orthodox synagogues, schools, camps, and communal institutions. New York will always have a Jewish population. The large Reform synagogues in this city will likely still be in this city 50 years from now. With good leadership in our generation, there is no reason why our successors will not celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Stephen Wise Free Synagogue in the year 2057. Third, there is still enormous capacity within American Jewry and a will to remain Jewish. We are highly affluent, highly educated, creative, innovative, progressive, and even American Jews who are not affiliated with the Jewish community say their Judaism is important to them. But understand this: if current trends continue, the coming generations will be much smaller. There will be far less Jews in the United States. There are already less Jews now than a generation ago. If current trends continue, we will become a smaller component of the American fabric, a kind of curiosity, a protected species vulnerable to extinction. And American Jewry will be much less progressive, much less open, and less affluent. And if current trends continue, in some of your families, the Jewish line will end. It might have been a line that began hundreds of years ago, or perhaps even thousands of years ago. Your Jewish lineage might have begun at Sinai itself. But it will end in a generation or two if current trends continue. Now, some American Jews do not consider this to be bad news at all. I've had congregants tell me that none of their grandchildren are Jewish, but they don't mind at all. One congregant told me, "My grandchildren are ethical people, and since the heart of Judaism is to be good and ethical, I consider them Jews." Every time I write an article or a sermon about the centrality of Jewish peoplehood and the importance of sustaining Jewish life, I get all kinds of comments from Jews and non-Jews who seem to be driven to apoplexy. And I imagine it will happen again when we post this sermon online. This is racist. Differences between people is the problem. Isn't Judaism about the universal family of the human race? Why are you insisting on the continuing existence of the Jewish particular? You are ancient. Get with the modern world. They don't say that about every other American type. Korean Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, Italian Americans, French Americans, German Americans, British Americans, African Americans. There's never an issue about their ties to their founding civilization. It's only problematic if the Jews have ties to Jewish civilization. Now, if this is your view, there is nothing I can say that will make a difference. You will get mad every time you hear me speaking of Jewish peoplehood and Jewish continuity. You are entitled to your view. But even if this is your view, I hope that you will cut me some slack, that somewhere deep down inside of you, you will say to yourself, you know what? At least the guy cares about Jews and the future of Judaism, and that's understandable for a rabbi. But if this is not you, if you do want a Jewish life, and you would like your descendants to be Jewish as well, then you and the rest of the Jewish community need to get over our intellectual and emotional denial. Sometimes denial is a good thing. It's a self-protecting mechanism that in the face of too much pain and sorrow could otherwise paralyze us. Rabbis, for example, excel at self-denial and delusion. We wouldn't be able to do our work otherwise. But there are two areas where our denial is compromising our future. First, relates to the Jewish community. There are hundreds of Jewish organizations and initiatives, and I am prepared to acknowledge that most of them serve good and useful purposes. They enhance Jewish life and contribute to Jewish values. However, from the perspective of Jewish continuity, will there be Jews in the next generation? There are 3 American institutions that form the very core of our community and most impact and enrich upon the family. And the family is still the basic building block of Jewish life. These core communal institutions are Jewish schools, Jewish summer camps, and synagogues. These are the institutions that best create and sustain Jewish identity. Issue-specific causes like organizations that perpetuate the memory of the Holocaust or promote identification with Israel are, of course, very important. But from the perspective of Jewish continuity, they are not enough. Jewish secular organizations, community centers, university departments, cultural agencies are, of course, very important. But from the perspective of Jewish continuity, they are not enough. They can help expand Jewish identity, but if that identity is not in place first, there is nothing to build upon. This was emphasized yet again in the Pew study. According to the survey, 2/3 of the Jews whom we commonly call secular and cultural Jews do not raise Jewish children. 2/3. In comparison, over 90% of Jews by religion who are raising children are raising them with at least some Judaism at home. To put it another way, practically none of the American Jews who say that their Jewish identity consists exclusively of secular values, practically none of them will have Jewish descendants by the 3rd generation. And frankly, I don't need the Pew organization to tell me this. I know this because I see it every day. And so do you. Be honest with yourselves. You see it in your friends, and you see it in your own families. The upshot of this is that as a community, our priorities are inverted. We allocate resources disproportionately. In reality, we don't allocate enough resources at all. Every Jewish professional knows and laments the sad truth that relative to the capacities of American Jews, only a small percentage of money is donated to Jewish causes at all. Think of the enormous capacities, financial capacities of American Jews. And then think of how little is actually donated to the Jewish community. And from that money that is donated to Jewish causes, schools, camps, and synagogues should be receiving a much higher percentage. These are the institutions that are most responsible for creating and sustaining Jewish identity. If we do not adequately fund these institutions, there will be far fewer Jews to sustain all of the other components of American Jewish life. Less Jews to support museums. Less Jews to support Israel. less Jews to support federations, less Jews to support community centers, less Jews to support American progressive values and politicians and political parties that reflect these values. Far less Jews. And believe me, the growing Orthodox population will not take our place in supporting these values. And among the three core institutions that create Jewish identity, synagogues are the most important of all. They are the most enduring. The synagogue is the primary institution that caters to the family. It is the synagogue that best accompanies the family in its many life cycle moments of both joy and sorrow. The synagogue is the only institution of American Jewish life that defines its mission as lifelong, cradle to grave. It is the only place where American Jews can express their Jewish identity at all phases in their lives and for the gamut of values that American Jews say is important to them. Synagogues are the anchoring institution of American Jewry. And therefore, my second point is this. On a personal level, if you want Jewish continuity in your family, you need to make your peace with religion. If you define yourself as exclusively secular or cultural, and this leads you to not affiliate with a synagogue or to disaffiliate after the last child is bar mitzvahed, you are far less likely to have Jewish grandchildren. That's the truth. All Jewish values, all of them, even what we sometimes call secular Jewish values, justice, generosity, compassion, tzedakah, Zionism, reason and rationality, higher education, engagement with the world, they are all connected to Sinai. They are all part of a worldview that was developed over thousands of years that in some way is connected to doing God's will. Now, you don't have to pass some kind of religious litmus test. You can celebrate Shabbat any way you want. You can celebrate Shabbat without God. I really don't care. But Shabbat is a religious value. It is connected to the religious imperative of rest, balance, and justice. And entire libraries have been devoted to this religious concept. So celebrate Shabbat. Join synagogues. Observe Jewish festivals at home. Give your children a Jewish education, read liturgy, and study Torah from time to time, and believe anything you want. But do it in and through the synagogue. If you go to the swimming pool and call it Jewish, it's not enough. It might be enough to get good exercise. It's not enough to exercise your Jewish identity. If you want Jewish continuity in your family, you need sustained discipline. It's like anything else. You can't pop into a lecture from time to time, call it a Jewish lecture, and poof, there is Jewish identity. You can't say, my children are good people, Judaism demands goodness, therefore, ipso facto, my children are Jewish. So habituate yourself to a certain kind of Jewish discipline. Jews generally do not believe, as most people do, that actions follow beliefs. Rather, we believe that in most cases, beliefs follow actions. For example, there is no word in Judaism that really captures the concept of charity. The closest Hebrew word is tzedakah, which doesn't mean charity at all. It means justice. You have an obligation to support the poor. It is the law of moral behavior. And even if you do not understand it, and even if you do not agree with it, you need to do it anyway. And perhaps over time, you'll come to understand. I say to you the same thing. Don't start at the end. Start at the beginning. Live Jewish lives. Do Jewish things. Understanding will come later. Understanding will come from doing. I know that there are many congregants here and many Jews throughout the United States who do want to live Jewish lives and who want their children to have a strong Jewish identity. I was amazed when one of our congregants told me that he happened upon a group of nursery school mothers who sat around upstairs one of our tables and talked about their struggles with the issue that I haven't even thought about, such as, what impact does the different religious practice of their nannies have on their children? Never entered my mind. But I'm moved by these testimonials. They tell me that there is still a strong desire to live Jewish life. But these times are so challenging for us and so confusing, and there is such a dearth of Jewish leadership. Judaism is glorious. It is so intelligent, realistic, rational, and inspirational. It is a miracle and a marvel that a small tribe located in the Near East produced such monumental values that have in many ways defined Western civilization. And it is a miracle and a marvel that the Jewish people is still here. We can still prosper. Jews are survivors. We have always found creative and innovative ways to overcome urgent challenges. There are still millions of American Jews who want to be Jewish. I see some of them every day. There are still millions of American Jews who want to raise their children with a strong Jewish identity. May it continue to be so, now and forever. Amen.